So for those of you that struggle with finding the VMO with my hip side shift position, this is another variation. The movement's more complicated, but it's actually quite a bit more effective. And what we're going to do is we're going to get in this basically side lying position as if you're going to do another bridge. So we've got the knees stacked, feet stacked, hips back, broad square shoulders, and he's going to fire through here. So boom. So he's on the knee and on the elbow doing a hip extension. So from here, so we've got glute activity there. We're going to draw one leg back and set it behind the other one. So essentially in the very similar position here. And his pelvis is rolled back here. I'm going to facilitate some pelvis movement first. So I'm going to grab his hips and just kind of teach him to roll on top of it. So you'll have to practice this yourself until we get some good movement right there. So not up here, we want it right there on the hip, so we're going to roll in. And then you're going to drive this knee. So go ahead and roll back into that position. So we'll roll the hip up. Boom. Just stay in that position right now. So just focus on the hip roll. So again, going to facilitate this, stay there. And then, stay in that position, stay on the ground. So go ahead and roll and stay in that position. And you can feel that knee driving into the ground, right? Yeah. So lift this up. Right there. And at the same time, bringing your hips up off the ground. So there we go, rip and lifting this. My hand's getting crushed. We're off the ground here. And I can feel in here, we've got a great leg activity. Feel that, Brandon?
Yeah, I feel it.
Okay, come down. So this really gets in there and targets that area immediately. It's very, very powerful. But it's a little bit more of a complicated movement. So again, we want that side lying position, shoulders stacked, tall with the head. Get a few rolls to open up that hips. Even a hip airplane first may be a good movement so we can get boom on it. So now, boom, we're in it. Press, lift, get those hips up, boom, and firing. Okay, come down. Let's see if you can do it without this foot on the ground.
Okay.
All right, again, roll the hips. Boom. So roll on. Okay, press, lift. Boom. How's that? Okay, come down. All right, now we're going to torture Brandon. Okay? So I'm going to take a band. This is a really, really, really light band. You can tell that because it's been broken many times because it's so light. And I'm going to loop this around his shoulder. So this is going to be the top shoulder. And I'm going to go around the back on that side. And around the waist, coming off right here on the hip. So I'm right across this hip here. And here, now I'm pulling against that hip that he needs to close. So let's close the hip. Boom. More in the hip, less in the upper body. So get a few first. Good. Roll onto it. Okay, hold. And go ahead and move into position. So what we've done here is just add some torsional resistance to this. You feel that?
Yep.
Okay, come down. So another play on that may take a partner or a light band mounted to a wall. So again, on the shoulder, across the back, looping around the stomach, and pulling on this hip that you want to close against that VMO. So that's what's pulling that in together. Okay? So we did 3 different variations there. We did just the side lying with raising the leg. Still had the opposite leg planted on the ground, assisting. Then we moved that leg off the ground to make it more challenging. And then in the final progression, added band resistance against the hip. And really that is the level of progression there. Each one should have been progressively harder. So Brandon, your experience?
It was progressively harder. You know, once you begin to refine those movements a little better and apply the resistance, you could really, really feel both glutes, and you should feel both glutes be the main thing that's stabilizing your setup. Those adductors will kick in, but it's really once you get those glutes to stabilize you is really the key. And you probably won't feel it unless I think the one thing that's critical with this is that hip roll. You know, and even corrected me, I was really in the shoulders. I'm like, okay, I'm rolling, but it's really, you have to roll that hip in order to get those glutes set, and that's really, really critical.
Yes, it is. That's why I always made sure I facilitated that and was coaching that point first. Really want to be able to close that hip. And if you got some issues there, that's why I suggested, a good primer before moving into this may be the hip airplane,
Yeah.
where you're basically doing that same movement but just focused on mobilizing the
Well, and
hip.
something that's very common among lifters, I think, and something that I myself have, is I'm really stuck into this extended pattern here. So closing that off was something that was very difficult to learn, and you might need to regress it a little bit toward there, or even do a set of 10 to 15 of those just hip rotations in that lying position to get it before you apply any kind of resistance or go through it.
Absolutely. And I had them do multiple of those before we went in, just so you can set a groove that and try to get it closer. And that's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to hit multiple of those hip rolls before you actually try to progress into
Right.
that movement.
For filming purposes, I think we probably only did 5, but if you're doing it on your own, there's probably no reason you can't do 15 plus of those before you actually get into it.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.